Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Namseoul students. How are you doing this fine first week of spring? I know it's been pretty difficult, right? We're all staying in the house. Nobody's able to go outside. Everybody's still worried and stressed about everything that's going on. But I really hope from the bottom of my heart that you guys are having a good week. So here we are again on week two, the intermediate English conversation class. Again, I'm Professor George Baier or Professor Baier or just George or just Joji, and I'm happy to have you here again today. I'm still sad I cannot see any of your smiling faces, but I have a feeling soon enough that we're going to see each other. Now, you guys already know probably that the online sessions have been extended one more week, so it's not 2 weeks now, but 3 weeks we're going to be doing online classes. We don't know if in the future we're going to have less online, or we're going to have all online classes or not. I don't know yet, but as soon as I know, I'll let you know. I guess you might know before I do, though. Right, so right now we have to do it like this. Again, it's not the best way to teach English conversation. I really wish I could be talking to you guys and joking with you guys and getting to know you, but we have the special circumstances of COVID-19. So I hope you're all feeling really well. Without further ado, let's get into today's lesson. So again, intermediate English conversation. Well, I was thinking about doing a little bit of an icebreaker to break the ice. Do you guys know what an icebreaker is? Do you know what it means to break the ice? So this is a kind of an idiom, as you guys say in Korean, biyu, right? Like a metaphor. So to break the ice is to reduce tension. So often on the first day of class and conversation class, many students are a little bit nervous, or nobody wants to talk, nobody knows what to say first, right? I know for some of you guys, alcohol is a great icebreaker, right? It breaks the ice when people are afraid to talk, but unfortunately, we cannot drink alcohol in class. I'm drinking a little Starbucks iced canned coffee I got from the convenience store. That gives me some energy, but we can't drink alcohol. So what breaks the ice? Well, humor breaks the ice. Humor, jokes. I'm always interested about cultural differences with humor. I think sometimes some things in America or Canada are funny that aren't funny in Korea, and sometimes things that are funny in Korea aren't funny in United States or Canada. So I'm kind of curious about that. I think jokes can be very difficult. I often ask my students to tell me jokes and I try to understand them because I think understanding humor is a really like shortcut to learning a language and learning a culture. Unfortunately, humor is so different that it's difficult to tell a joke that everybody understands. So I was trying to think of some jokes that are like really, really simple and they're not always that funny, but if you can get them, by I mean get them, if you can understand them at least a little bit, then I think it helps us understand it. It's kind of like having a conversation, right? So today's joke. Imagine. So there are two drunk men stumbling, walking through the streets late one night after a work party. Okay, they're really drunk. They had too many soju's. They're trying to get a taxi home. One drunk man stumbles into the other man. Whoa, they're always walking around and they can't see what they're doing. They're so drunk. The second drunk man looks up at the sky and says, "Hey, is that the sun or the moon?" He points to the sky. He says, "Is that the sun or the moon?" And the first drunk man replies, "I don't know. I'm a stranger here myself." Ha ha. Get it? Get it? I don't know if you get it. I'm kind of curious. I think it's not really a funny joke. I think in Korean you might call it a cold joke, but I think you can still get it maybe. If you get it, with your homework today, when you email me this week, I want you to tell me, explain this joke to me. Okay? Explain this joke to me. I'm curious how many students might get it. And that's kind of your conversation practice for today. So look at this joke. Try to tell me, why would this be funny? Why would this be funny? Okay? I didn't say it really is funny, but why might some people think it's funny? Tell me in an email, okay? Okay, ha ha ha. Well, there's our English icebreaker. Let's talk about today's agenda. By agenda, I mean, what is our plan for today? What is our plan for today? Well, we're going to review some things that we talked about last week. Some things we didn't talk too much as far as a lesson or conversation, but we talked about the class. We did a few things. I want to see if you remember them. We are going to talk about our upcoming schedule. So what are we going to do in the next couple of weeks? Remember that our schedule, our syllabus might change a lot. So I want to make sure that you guys understand everything that's going on, that you understand what you're doing, and that you don't get worried about anything, because this semester is really, really different than other semesters. Okay. We're going to talk about adverbs of frequency and talking about your daily life, okay? So an adverb of frequency is a kind of part of speech that talks about how much you do something, okay? And talking about your daily life. So this is going to be one of the things that we do when we do our quiz, which is coming up. Okay, and we're going to be talking about writing an email. Okay, so not only speaking is part of conversation, but also writing can be part of a conversation, right? And a lot of students don't get a little practice about this kind of writing, right? This kind of writing. And I'm going to remind you about some things that are kind of important, right? What kinds of things are important that are coming up soon? If you recall, we have some kind of quizzes coming up. We have a midterm that we have to do, and so I want to make sure that you guys know what is important in this class in the next few weeks. So that's our agenda. Not too much today. Not too much today. We'll see how long it takes. Maybe we'll get out of here a little bit early. I know you guys don't like listening to all of my PowerPoints. Okay, our upcoming schedule. Well, the week of March 30th, I want you to finish your student profile. Remember, that's the Google Docs link in the first week on the e-class. So your student profile was a paper. You're going to print it out, put your photo, and include lots of information about yourself. Okay, you're going to give it to me on our first real class. So I want to see it with your photo and lots of information on the first week of class. Okay. Now, we don't know if classes are all canceled and it's all online, then we might have to email it or something like that. I'm not sure exactly about that yet. If that's the case, I'll let you guys know. It won't be a problem. Don't panic. Don't get scared. We will find the solution if classes are canceled, okay? The week of April 6th, there's a quiz based on the class material. So that's anything we've done up till then, anything we've done today. It could be on our class quiz on April 6th. It will be online. That will probably be online. I'm guessing it's going to be 25 questions. Now, we might go back to class on April 6th. In that case, if we go back to class and we're in Namseoul Gyoshil on April 6th, then we'll do it right in class. But I'm guessing maybe classes might be canceled. We don't know yet. If that's the case, we'll do it online, and I'll show you everything how to do it. Again, don't panic. We're all learning here. It's a new situation. We can get through it. On the week of April 20th, we're going to have the midterm test. It's going to be online no matter what. Even if we have class, it's going to be online. And if we have class, we're going to have an in-class speaking part. Okay, we're going to have an in-class speaking part, and we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so we're going to talk about do a quick parts of speech review. Because part of speech is very important. You guys have gone over this probably since you were in middle school or elementary school, or even earlier if you started learning languages earlier. So a part of speech is something that makes up the language that we speak in Korean or English or Swahili or Hindi or Thai or Aztec. These are parts of speech, help us understand how we speak. So the first part of speech, the most important part of speech, is the noun. My students often call this the naming word. So a noun describes a person, Joji, teacher, student, a place, Seoul, New York, Daegu, a thing, pencil, Coca-Cola, PlayStation, encyclopedia, internet, or an idea. This one's a little bit more complicated, but ideas like 민주주의, democracy, 자본주의, capitalism, 공산주의, communism. So these are ideas. 사랑, right? Love. Love is also an idea. It's a noun, though. Even though we can't touch love, we can't touch democracy, they're ideas, they're nouns. Okay, they can be general, like common nouns. So I might say teacher is a common noun, professor, or specific. Proper noun would be George Professor or New York City. Okay. A verb. The next part of speech is the verb. It's a doing word. Okay. It shows either A, an action, something that was done, or a state of being, something that is. So those are be, is, was, are. They're called the being verbs. Being verbs. Next is adjective. Adjective. So it's a word that describes the qualities of something. It's size, appearance, personality. Then it modifies a noun. So big, tall, small, beautiful, luxurious. And the colors, blue, green, white, red, these are all also adjectives. They modify nouns. So they're coupled with a noun. And in English, an adjective usually goes before the noun. So a plump dog, right? A dog, a fat dog, okay? Fat is the adjective. It goes before the noun dog. Adverb, a word that describes how something is done or how often it's done, and it modifies a verb. So how did he eat? He ate hungrily. He ate quickly. Or a different kind of adverb is the adverb of frequency, which we're going to talk about now. Take a look at that again and read those over. And I think you remember most of them. Okay. So the adverbs of frequency. What does frequency mean? Well, frequency has a couple of different meanings in English, but it's related to the adjective frequent. So how often something is done. Picture there, he looks like he's studying, or he might be pleasure reading. Do you read for pleasure? Not many of my students read for pleasure these days, unfortunately. I think they're so busy studying that many people don't have the time. But I think that reading for pleasure can be a kind of meditation, right? It can make you feel happier if you take time to read for pleasure. But a lot of people aren't doing it too much these days. They think it's not pleasurable, but I do encourage it. I'm wondering, how much do you read for pleasure? Somebody might say never, somebody might say often, right? So these are called the adverbs of frequency. Okay, so we can talk about adverbs of frequency when we're talking about study habits. How often do you study? Some students only study like the day before a test, and they do quite well that way. Some students study every day. Personally, I think if you want to really remember something, you're going to study a little bit every day. Not necessarily a lot every day, but a little bit every day, and that's going to help you remember things more. So we can see here, he said, I got an F again. This poor little guy, he got an F again. I got an A plus, he said. You got an A plus again? How do you do it? I always get an F. Well, I always do my homework, and I often ask the teacher for help. So always and often are adverbs. They modify two different verbs here, do and ask. These are both action verbs. Now, we can use adverbs also with being verbs, but they function more simply when we use them with action verbs, and I think it's a little easier to understand that way. So always and often. Always being the maximum adverb of frequency, meaning it's done all the time, and often being almost as much as always. Okay, so I think you guys are all familiar with these. This is just a little bit of a review, and we can use them properly and consistently both in our speech and in our writing when we're talking about our personal selves and our daily activities. Well, I'm usually late for class and I never do my homework. Usually is a little bit less common than often, and never, of course, is the exact opposite of always, meaning he never does it 0 times. Are there any of the students who never do their homework? Well, I have many students who often or always do their homework in the 5 minutes before class starts. I know, to be young, it's usual. Okay, maybe I need to try your study habits. Good example, right? He's a good example for him. Okay, so adverbs of frequency 1. Adverbs of frequency say how often something happens. He always studies, so this is something that happens 100% of the time. He usually studies maybe 90%, often like 80, 75%, 60%. Sometimes studies, so he's not a total slacker. Slacker is a gerenbengi, right? Somebody who slacks. They don't like doing stuff. This is maybe they just sometimes study, but they're not totally stupid, so they do okay. He rarely studies. Okay, he's playing PlayStation or Nintendo or something, 40 or 30%, and he never studies. So I guess you guys already know the students who do best at a language, whether it's English, Korean, Japanese, any other language. These are ones who study it always and often. And how do you study it always and often? It's when you like it, when you enjoy it, and when you're doing something really active in it. Okay. I want you guys to remember this scale. If I ask you the questions on the test, I might ask you something. Please remember the scale of this. I'm going to say he blah, blah, blah. He does this activity how much? And I'm going to write 100% or 80%. And you have to choose one of these. Okay. So adverbs of frequency come after the verb be. Remember we said there's a be verb in English, there's an action verb, and there's a be verb. She is, in this case, would be the be verb. The adverb of frequency is highlighted there sometimes. the students are, plural be verb is are, in the adverb of frequency, never bored. How about you guys? How often are you bored looking at these PPTs in these videos all week? I bet you guys are often bored. I hope it can be a little bit useful to you and a little bit fun, some parts of it. I know that's kind of wishful thinking though. Okay, so again, in English, the adverb of frequency goes after the be verb. Got it? After the be verb. On the quiz or test, I might ask you some grammar question and you need to be able to answer it. So I might ask you, in English, does the adjective come before or after the noun? In English, does the adverb come before or after the be verb? Okay? Okay, adverbs of frequency usually come before other verbs. So after the adverb of frequent, after the be verb, but before action verbs. So she often checks her answers. So often is the adverb of frequency. It comes before the action verb. He usually pays attention in class. So pays attention or pays is the action verb. Usually is the adverb of frequency. So remember again, this is another one of those grammar questions I might ask you. Adverbs of frequency usually come before other verbs. So usually and sometimes, however, can be used a little bit differently. Languages, and I think especially English, often has exceptions. So there's a rule, and the rule is true 90% of the time. The rule is true usually. However, sometimes there are exceptions to rules. In Korean is the same. So usually and sometimes can also come at the beginning or the end of the sentence. The beginning or the end of a sentence. So that's pretty easy to remember. You just need to remember that it only applies, or most often only applies, to usually or sometimes. So the dog eats his homework sometimes. I eat kimchi sometimes. You eat kimchi often. Sometimes the dog eats his homework. I often eat kimchi. Okay, so again, sometimes can go at the beginning or the end of the sentence and it doesn't change the meaning. And we can put it before the action verb. We can also put it before the action verb. So the dog sometimes eats his homework. Okay, so well, this says work with a partner because I usually do this with groups. If you have a partner with you, that's great. However, we might not be able to do that this time. However, I want you to write it down. I might ask to look at this later. I want you to practice it. So we might do something for a participation score later, not this week, but perhaps next week. So how often do you study at your computer? I know many students spend a lot of time looking at their computer, a lot of time looking at their phone. How often do you do it? I would say most students are doing it usually or often these days. It's a very powerful tool, right? So he says he sometimes studies at his computer. You could also, again, remember, you can say, sometimes I study at my computer, or I study at my computer sometimes. Okay, take a look at these ones. How about study in front of the TV? Study in front of the TV. Well, I'm stuck inside of my house with the coronavirus running outside. So what do I keep putting on Netflix and watching all of Netflix. I've watched so many movies and TV series, but I'm getting pretty bored of it. I hope Netflix adds some new movies and new TV shows because I think around the world everybody's getting very bored, right? How often do you ask the teacher for help? How often do you ask your teacher for help? Now, I know many students are reluctant to ask the teacher for help, but I hope that you often ask the teacher for help. I know sometimes you don't want to bother me, right? You're so polite, you're so kind, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here so that you can ask me questions. So I hope you're often asking me questions. How often are you early to class? Well, that doesn't apply to us here, but I know many students, if they finish their class early, they always come to my class. How often do you review your grammar notes? Well, in this case, I think reviewing your grammar notes, I hope you always do it because we don't have a normal class this time. Your class and your grade depends on what you're doing when you're watching these lectures. So I hope you always review your grammar notes. How often do you make flashcards, vocabulary cards? It's a great way to learn a language. I hope you often do that. And how often are you attentive in class? Attentive meaning you pay attention. Okay. By the way, sometimes I write the Korean meanings of these words. If you don't know what a word is or it's spoken too fast, you can always pause it, get your Papago app out, and look up the word, right? So just a reminder, I know it gets boring, but that can help you stay awake. It can help you stay awake. So yeah, we don't get to do these in class, but hopefully we'll have a chance to do these in a few weeks. Questions with ever. Okay, so we use ever in yes or no questions. This can be a problem for Korean students because they think that ever means the opposite of never, but it doesn't really. It has kind of a different meaning. Okay, ever means at any time. At any time. So, are the tests ever easy? Yes or no? Will we ever have class in Namseoul classroom? Yes or no? Does he ever get an A? Does he ever get an A? So again, it's not the opposite of never. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Be careful, do not use ever in affirmative statements. Again, it's not the opposite of never. So, do you ever come on time? Yes, I ever come on time. Is it right? No, I always come on time. The opposite of never is always, not ever. You guys are intermediate 중급, so I think you don't make that mistake, but it's really common, not only for Korean speakers, but many people who are learning English. Because I think never and ever, they look the same, right? They look like the same words. They have a similar meaning, a similar connotation, but we use them differently. So always. I never come late. So questions with how often, and this is a big one for us, I think. This is what we're really going to practice. This is what we're really going to practice in this class. I think that's going to be really, really important for us. How often to ask about frequency. So how often do you study with a partner? I think studying with a partner in group is usually good for a lot of people when they're learning a language. I rarely study with a partner. Well, that's so sad for her, right? I feel pretty sad for her. So how often do you what? Fall asleep studying. How often are you tired? So this is the kind of thing that I might ask on the test. Again, we can't practice it in class. Some classes I make them do a little video for me, but I think you guys might be kind of busy. So I'm not going to make you do that this week, but I want you to know that I am going to ask this type of question to you on the test. And if we do a speaking test, I'm definitely going to ask it, okay? How often do you fall asleep studying? How often are you tired in class? Many of my students are tired in class, but I rarely, not often, see students actually fall asleep. A few times. I usually don't stop them. Usually that means they're hungover, right? They drank a lot the night before. So I try not to bother students if they're really, really tired like that. I know some professors might wake them up, but I never do that. Rarely I do. And if I think they're going to miss something very important, then I do it. Okay, so I might ask you any of these questions. How often do you study in a group? How often are you bored in class? How often are you bored in quarantine from the virus? How often do you practice speaking outside of class? How often do you practice speaking outside of class? I think it's so important. That's why I'm going to give you guys some homework that requires you to practice English outside of class a little bit. And I'll show you in a moment. How often do you fail the test? How often do you get confused in class? It happens a lot. I hope I don't speak too fast for anybody. If I do, if you often get confused in class, I hope that I'm getting emails or messages from you. Okay. And how often do you have a hangover after drinking? Soup treat, I think is the word for it. A hangover, you drank too much. I think soju is like, gives like a really strong hangover for like 3 or 4 days for me. I don't like to drink personally, but I think a lot of you maybe often have a hangover from drinking soju. Okay, so that's some grammar that we're going to talk about. If you've bought the book, then the first chapter has some things about adverbs of frequency. I would like you to, and I'm not going to check it right away, but if you do have the book, I want you to look at the grammar in Unit 1 in the adverbs of frequency. I would like you to do that just for yourself, because some of that stuff is going to be on the quiz. Okay, but we're going to talk about different skills in conversation now. We're going to move away from grammar right now, and we're going to move into practical skills. So think about, what skills do you want to have? What kind of skills do you want to have for conversation? Well, there are writing skills and there are speaking skills. I think many students want to get over their fear of speaking. Is so important. Unfortunately, this semester, as we said, it's not easy for you guys to get a chance to practice your speaking with me, but we are going to try to do some different speaking activities somehow, hopefully next week. But we're also going to focus on writing, which I normally don't do, but I think many students are also interested in the proper ways to write in different situations. So again, our special case, it doesn't really allow us to speak, so we're going to focus a bit more on writing and how to write certain things. So in this case, we're going to talk about writing an email. Sometimes I think writing an email should be pretty easy, but I find that students are often sending me emails and they'll just write a few words and they don't tell me, what class they're in or what their name is. They just write an email, which tells me that some students might not have a lot of experience in writing emails in English. So I thought this is kind of a useful thing for us to go over, talking about writing an email in English. Okay, so think about emails as letters. You guys ever write letters? We call nowadays in English, which I group the post office mail, we call snail mail. Snail like 달팽이, because it's so slow. So snail mail, emails are a kind of fast mail. I know everybody uses messengers, but I think in many cases that emails are still pretty important in certain more formal situations. And I still send emails, and I like my students to send me emails because I don't like to check my phone at like 9:30 p.m. at night. I want to not focus on my phone when I'm at home. I want to focus on making your guys' lessons or cooking my food or doing some of my other work. So I think emails are pretty important. So they're usually shorter and less formal than letters. So less formal means they're more casual. They're abbreviated. They're shorter, right? They're shorter. There can be long emails, but they're often abbreviated. They're shorter. So they're often slightly more formal than Kakao messages or instant messaging on Facebook or on your phone. So they're less formal than a real letter, than a snail mail, but more formal than Kakao or instant messaging often, but not always. There's some overlap. Sometimes they're very similar. In the business world, you should try to appear more formal and not too casual. So if you're writing a letter about a job or about going to university and abroad, then you should try to appear more formal and not too casual. Okay, and that's in the business world. Okay, you should write an effective subject line. So the subject line, of course, everybody sees it. This is in English, no matter what country you're in. It says subject at the top of your paper, at the top of your email. You should write an effective one. It matters. It's important. Okay, it's important that your email doesn't get filtered out as spam or that people remember to check it. It says something that's important. So it's to catch the reader's attention. We get our emails filled with so many spam and so many emails nowadays that we don't even check it sometimes, right? We just go through it and you accidentally delete something. So make it catch their attention. Be brief and specific. So specific means exact, not general. So don't just write classwork in your subject, right? You're going to write, homework from last week's class, last week homework. Okay, avoid uppercase. Those are big letters. Don't use capital letters too much in your email, but you might use them a little bit sometimes. Uppercase looks like shouting, and often I feel like it's a spam email. However, we might use it for the words attention, last week's homework. Attention, the part-time job. Attention, our date last weekend. So that would let somebody know that this is what this is about, and they're going to want to check this, right? They're going to want to check this right away. So begin with a greeting. Well, what's a greeting? A greeting is a kind of hello, right? It's a kind of hello. So it depends on the formality of the relationship. So I think you have a different relationship with your professors, especially your Korean professors, than you do with your football coach, than you do even with me, with your friends, with your younger sisters, your younger brothers, your mom and your dad. You have different greetings in Korean, and we also have them in English. So basic one, hello. Hello between friends. You can use it sometimes with people who are not your friends in an email, but it's very basic standard. Dear Professor Kim. So dear, very formal. You're addressing your professor. You're establishing some distance. Dear Mr. Fox. Okay, Mr. again, somebody who's older than you, somebody who you respect, higher than you. Hello, Monica. Maybe Monica is your friend. To whom it may concern. So to whom it may concern is a kind of greeting for somebody who you don't know exactly who you're talking to. So you saw a job and in the online posted on the internet, you want to apply for this job, but you don't know if you're talking to a man, you don't know if you're talking to a woman, you don't know exactly the person's status who's going to be reading your email, if they're the same age as you, if they're like a very high up person in the company. So you don't know exactly, so it's very easy just to write to whom it may concern. Okay, if you don't know exactly who you're going to talk to, but you want to have some kind of formality, then you're going to write to whom it may concern. Okay, again, in dear sir or madam. So sir is for a man, madam is for a woman. It's kind of a similar kind of thing as to whom it may concern. In this type of situation, you don't know if you're talking to a man or a woman, but you're showing politeness, you're showing respect. This is a respectful greeting when you don't know exactly who you're going to talk to. So always begin your email just like you begin your letter with a greeting, not hey, yeah, right? In English, we're probably not going to address an email with hey, unless maybe you're talking to your friends, but hey is kind of more with verbal speech anyways. Okay, thank the recipient. So at the end, you want to say thank you. So for a close friend, you might just say thanks. This is not impolite. So if somebody's sending you an email, though, you want to thank them. Thank you for contacting ABC Company. Find anything to thank them for. Thank you for your time. Thank you for reading my email. Thanks for your hard work in looking at my resume. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your prompt reply. Okay, thank you for your prompt reply. You might write this at the end. If you're sending a letter about a job, you might close it with thank you for your prompt reply, meaning you're expecting a reply to this email promptly. What's prompt? Quickly, right? Quickly. Okay. State your purpose. When you're writing an email, especially a formal email, you're going to state your purpose. So if you're initiating the communication, so initiating means starting. If you are starting the email, you're stating your purpose. Make it clear early in the email. Don't wait. Make it clear early on in the email. Keep your sentences short and clear, especially at the beginning. I'm writing to inquire about, so inquire means to ask. So I'm writing to inquire about, the job. I'm writing to inquire about the test. I'm writing to ask you a few questions. Why are you writing? I'm writing to ask you a few questions. You're stating your purpose clearly and short. I saw your advertisement in AK Plaza and I wanted to ask about the job. Keep it short and to the point. Keep it short and to the point. So eliminate all information that's not necessary. State the most relevant, important, and interesting information first. Remember, people are busy. I love to hear from you guys, but if I have a lot of emails, also I want you to be short and say the most interesting things because I might have a lot of other students to get to. Okay, the paragraph should be short, about 3 to 5 sentences. Okay. Again, there can be long emails sometimes, but these kind of business-related, school-related emails, it's often good if you say things shortly and say only the most important information. Keep it short and to the point. Keep it simple. We say KISS, K-I-S-S. Keep it simple, stupid. Okay. Just a kind of a funny joke. Okay. And don't forget to end with a closing. So your greeting goes at the beginning, your closing goes at the end. Thank them again. Refer to future contact. I will contact you again in 1 week. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Closing line, you can say, best regards. Sincerely. This is like your final sentence before you sign your name. Add your contact details, it's your phone number, your address, your office number. Obviously, this is if you're writing like a business-related email or if you want the person to contact you. Proofread for typos and mistakes, especially you're sending an email that is business-related or school-related. Make sure there are no typos somewhere where you typed the wrong letter or mistakes. Your mechanics fits Always check before you hit send because most email servers do not allow you to unsend, right? Most do not. And even if you do now, like if you unsend something in Kakao Talk, they still see that you deleted it, right? They still see that you deleted. So proofread for typos and mistakes before you send it. So here's an example of a formal email. Okay, formal, not casual. This is where you respect the people you're writing to. So I'm writing, Dear Sir or Madam, I read on naverjobs.com that you were looking for an apprentice programmer. So it's a kind of student programmer. I have studied programming at Namseoul University for 3 years. I have worked on similar projects to yours using C++ in JavaScript applications. It's my dream to move on to a big software company in the future. Can you tell me a little bit more information about the position, such as the hours and the payment? Thank you for taking the time to answer my questions. I look forward to your response. Sejun Park, Namseoul University, Computer Science Department, Office 301, and he leaves his phone number for contacting. So this is an example of formal email. Later on in class, we're going to have an example where I want you guys to write me up a formal email, okay? But for right now, we're going to keep it a little bit casual, but you have a real basic idea, something that's really, really simple to do, simple to copy. And here's an example of an informal email. Hi, Jorge. Listen, I've been working on Professor Baier's homework, and I was wondering if you could give me a hand. I need some help understanding what he wants us to do for our email assignment. Do you think you could pass on any information you might have? Thanks, Sejun. Okay, also very simple, not too brief, very polite still, and close. And they just close with thanks, not sincerely, not best regards, but just thanks. Just like what you might say to your friends in real life, right? Just like you might say. And you see he addresses Jorge by her first name, right? Hi, Jorge, or hello, Jorge. You don't have to be very formal. You don't need to write dear or dear sir or madam, of course, if you're just writing to your friend from class. And don't forget to use the power of the internet. Use the power of the internet. Use live hyperlinks in your emails. Use live hyperlinks in your emails if you want to send something. Use grammar and spelling software to check for any errors, right? We have Microsoft Word, Hangul, Office.com. They're all really good for checking for mistakes, right? So use them. If it underlines something in red, then that means there's a mistake. Fix it, change it. Use online dictionaries and thesauruses. Thesaurus is something like thesaurus.com. It can find synonyms. What is a synonym? Synonyms are words that mean the same thing, like hot and spicy, long and tall. So if you're writing a formal email, you want your vocabulary to sound the best. So in that case, you're going to use a thesaurus. It's going to help you find some better words. Okay. So for instance, I want you to use that when you do your homework. I want you to write me one email, 10 sentences, george.namseoul@gmail.com. Okay. Dear George, include your greeting. Introduction. This is blank in your class. This is Kim Ji-hae in your class. I have a lot of Kim Ji-haes. Tell me about something you did this week. Tell me about any of your activities you did at home. Ask me about my week. Ask me one other question or tell me one other thing about yourself. Okay? But it has to equal at least 10 sentences. Then you're going to write your closing regards, sincerely, thank you very much, and your name. Okay, so I want you to please write this email to me this week, anytime this week, and I'm going to check it for your participation score. Okay, so pretty simple, 10 sentences homework. Got it? You can always go back, review what we did in this video. Okay, a couple of reminders. We're just about out of time. Reminders, don't forget the upcoming quizzes. April 6th, the week of April 6th, we're going to have a 25 question quiz on some things that we did. This is for your participation score. We don't have class, we don't have speaking opportunities, so this is how we get our grade, right? In April 20th week, we're going to have our midterms. Hopefully we can have midterms in the classroom, but if not, we have to have them online. Don't forget to finish your profile last week. Use the profile document on week 1's e-class. Print it, attach the photo, and write lots of information. Give it to me the first time we meet in class. If we don't meet for class, then we'll think of something else. You can email it to me or scan it. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. We don't know the future. Please purchase the textbook if you didn't already. It's English in Common as soon as you can, and start the first unit grammar activities. Start the first unit grammar activities. And don't forget, please take care of your health and make sure you get enough rest. Now, there's one thing I forgot to write in here. Some students might have something really, really important to tell me or ask me. So I'm going to say, if you need to tell me something really, really important, I usually don't do it, but I'm going to give out my Kakao Talk ID. Okay, I'm going to speak it. So you have, this is your listening practice. I didn't write it in the PowerPoint. Your listening practice, my Kakao Talk ID is Yorgaki. Y-O-R-G-A-K-I. So if you have a question, it's very, very important. Please send me a text message. If it's like after 9 o'clock at night, I won't get back to you until the next morning. Sometimes I turn off my phone at night, or I'm not nearby, I'm sleeping. So, but if you do before that, I'll try to answer you as soon as possible. That's if you have something really, really important you need to answer very, very fast, okay? If you don't have something really, really important, then just send an email, okay? Again, please take care of your health, get enough rest. I hope everything's going good for you guys. Remember, I'm here for you. We're going to get through this. Fighting!